This week on the Media Boss Podcast. Everybody's wondering, what's your secret, brother?
It's consistency. I mean, I think that's really the biggest thing. And it's interesting. We're actually now up to 384,000. So we'll be hitting 400,000 downloads pretty soon. But it took a while to really.
Welcome to another episode of the Media Boss Podcast. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews, and I am elated to have you here for another episode, another chance for me to pour into you some things that I've heard about the media, that I know about the media, that I want to share with you about the media. And of course, as you already know, I have a phenomenal guest. Yes, I always do, and y'all know that. My guests are the bomb. So this one is no different. I just want to let y'all know that up front before I even bring them on. For those of you who are just listening for the first time and wondering, what is this guy babbling about here and what is Media Boss Podcast? Well, what the Media Boss Podcast is, it's a podcast to help you to get clients all over the globe, to show you that if you control your media, you can have clients everywhere. We've been taught to go find those clients. Media Boss Podcast shows you that no, make yourself findable for clients. They are looking for you all over in different forms of media. If you go and make yourself present in every form of media, guess what? They'll find you no matter where they're looking. Okay? That's what the Media Boss Podcast is about. So I want you guys to right now make sure that you're sharing this with people. Make sure you let people know that you are listening or watching the Media Boss Podcast. And also make sure you subscribe. And at the end, we'd love for you to give us a great rating and a fantastic review as well. Now, I'd like to start off every show with something I call the Media Minute. Now, what is the Media Minute? The Media Minute is where I just take a little bit to tell you something either I learned or some news or something that may entertain you about the media. And today, what I want to talk to you about is putting together a documentary film. A lot of people have heard me talk about putting together documentary films around their business to show a different side of it. Now, I'm not talking about something that's an hour and a half, 2 hours that you go to the theater about. I'm talking about something maybe 20, 30 minutes that shows a human side of you, that when people ask themselves, should I do business with you? They can look at that and see that you are you're not just somebody who's trying to sell them something, but you're a real person that cares about what you're doing. Now, the one thing I want to give you on this is to make sure that you invest in a crew. Now, when I say a crew, people to help you to put together the documentary. I'm not talking about spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. What I'm saying is make sure you get some people who have some skills, who know what they do, know what they're doing. It doesn't have to be a lot of money at all. It doesn't have to be any money if you got the right people that know what they're doing, but just make sure you get a crew, because it's very, very hard to do a documentary while you're the one shooting and you're the one in the scene. So I just want to make sure that you understand that as well. So that is our Media Minute for today. Now, it's time for me to bring on my guest. Now, I have to say, before I bring this person on, I'm a little biased about this person because he's a friend. He went to my college, Hampton University. So I'm a little biased about him. I'm just letting y'all know that up front. So that's my dude. But I got to tell you, I mean, in the front of the business world, whoo, guys, y'all don't know what you're in for. He's the co-founder and CEO of the What Happened Now movement. The mission of this group is to build high-performing entrepreneurs, authors, career professionals who will prepare for life's unexpected curveballs. Y'all know life can throw you some curveballs. He's also a certified life and business coach. He's conducted over 28,000 coaching sessions. I didn't stutter. 28,000 coaching sessions. He's helped a lot of executives and leaders to grow. Now, I have been privileged enough to be on his podcast, the 30-minute hour podcast. Now, what's so special about his podcast? Well, his podcast in 2 years, did I say two? I meant 2 years, he has gotten over 300,000 downloads. You think that's something? That means he can bring in sponsors. That's right. That means he can bring in sponsors. And he's also got a fantastic book, The Discipline of Now. 12 practical principles to overcome procrastination. And it is an award-winning book, top 10 finalists for 2020 Author Elite Award. So the man has done a lot. and he is controlling his media. You heard me talk about books. You heard me talk about podcasts. And also he does it on video and audio. So that way he can capture different audiences. So I'm going to stop blabbing my mouth and I'm going to bring on my man, Mr. Eric Twiggs, to the Media Boss Podcast. Eric, welcome to the Media Boss Podcast, my friend.
Hey, thank you, man. That is a fantastic introduction, man. I was thinking, man,
it's you.
I was like, when does this guy get here, man?
When we get it. Yeah, it's funny. I stopped doing bios. That's why I just asked you to give me some points to. I stopped doing, but when you're reading the bio, it sounds like you're reading the bio.
Right.
And I never liked that because especially I heard people read my bio and I hate hearing it. It's like, oh God, stop it. But I think if you give them some points and let them put their own voice on it, it sounds a little bit better on it. So, man, welcome, man. It's good to see you again, brother.
Great seeing you as well, man. It's good to see somebody else from the real HU.
That's right. Well, you know what? I have a joke, and this is for those of you who don't know what we're talking about. Hampton University is historically Black. Well, the most prestigious historically Black college university out there. And Howard University is the most famous historically Black college out there. But if you notice, they both have the initials HU. So Howard likes to say, we're the real HU, that they started this mess, and we don't really care, honestly. But then, if I say to someone, I went to Hampton, the first thing they say is, we're the real HU. I'm like, okay, dude, get over it. But I have a rebuttal for them, Eric. And my rebuttal is always, you can have HU. At Hampton, we use words.
That's good. Now, so, and I have nothing but love for the Howard people.
I do. That's the whole thing. We love them.
Yeah.
I love all my HBCUs. So we love them, but it's just a little fun banter, like Ohio State, Michigan, they have that stuff going on too. So it is nothing but love. But anyway, I want to talk to you about what you're doing as a Hampton man. But the thing is, you've done some remarkable things. I want to first talk about your podcast, man, because first of all, I had the privilege of being on your podcast, had an incredible time, and you have built it to over 300,000 downloads in 2 years. So everybody's wondering, what's your secret, brother?
It's consistency. I mean, I think that's really the biggest thing. And it's interesting. We're actually now up to 384,000. So we'll be hitting 400,000 downloads pretty soon. But it took a while to really ramp up. And I think you just have to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that's the big key. You can't expect to be Joe Rogan overnight.
You're right.
You figure you just, you do an episode and you'll have millions of followers and sponsors. It doesn't work like that for 99% of the population. So I think you just have to be in it for the long haul. And I think there's no one answer. I think we say it's not your everyday podcast. And so we try to be different from what's out there. And we bring a lot of fun to our podcast, as you probably can recall. Ted Fells and Ted's my co-host.
Yeah.
We make a lot of jokes. We joke with the guests. Most of the guests we have, they say, you know what, that's the most fun I've ever had on a podcast.
I love that.
I think that's what I think the banter and the back and forth between Ted and I think that's helping to grow the podcast as well. But the biggest thing is just consistency and just staying the course and just tweaking. And the other thing I would say is I've taken several different master classes on podcasting. I think that's helped too, because every time I do that, like I pick up like a little nugget.
Something. I agree with you. I totally agree. Yeah, and also like what would you say is the biggest benefit of having a co-host like Ted?
Oh, it's good because we complement each other, and like he is just completely off the cuff, right? Where I'm more structured and organized, we got to have this, and he's just totally off the cuff. So it brings good balance. And and he's got all kinds of insight. He's 26 years of running his own IT company. So he's got all kinds of insights, and he just brings that edge to the show. I think that takes us to the next level.
I love that. So as far as the podcast growth, like you said, you got to be consistent. And when did you start noticing that, you know what, hey, this thing is kind of starting to blow up? About how long into it did it take?
So now we've been at it for a while. We actually started the podcast in 2019 when we officially began the podcast. But I would say within the last year and 3 months,
Okay.
is when we started to really see serious momentum. And so the good thing, like when we first started the podcast, it was a struggle getting guests, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
So Ted and we have the joke. I'd be like, Ted, you got anybody? Nope. You got anybody? Okay. We got to get you. Right now, literally.
I've been there before. I've been there
Yeah.
years ago. I've been there before. I know what that's like. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Good to know I wasn't alone.
No, but now, I mean, I have like 5 people a day reaching out to me from around the world wanting to be on the podcast. And luckily, I have my assistant, Esther, who does the screening. And otherwise, I'd be going crazy trying to decide who to put on. And we have people from all around the world. It's just really picked up over time.
Look, it's funny. It's great when you can get to a point where you can tell someone you're not a good fit. Because when you're at that point where you're looking for guests, you're like anybody. Yeah. You're going to talk about how to make blouses? Yeah, come on, my son.
Sounds good to me.
Right. Been there, man. Been there. Good Lord. And the thing is, but it's really, like you said, you have people who will contact you from around the world. And that's what I talk about as far as being a media boss. You are controlling your media to the point that when someone is looking for you, no matter where they are in the globe, there you are. And that is phenomenal to me. And I know this is not the first time this happened, but how did it feel, if you can recall, when you first got someone interested in your podcast from another country?
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I think it may have been Australia.
Uh-huh.
That may have been the first foreign. And I remember Ted and I being like, oh man, Australia. Oh,
right.
And they're a day ahead. Mm-hmm. So they're in a whole different time zone. And I just remember that being a big deal. And we're blessed to be in a place now where if I tell Ted, hey, I've got someone from Israel that's going to be on, he's like, oh, okay. Right.
Now it's old hat,
Oh, yeah. Wait, years ago, he'd be like, Israel, what?
And that's cool. Because the thing is, it's one of those things I always tell people, I always reference, and I know the people that my audience probably tired of listening to me say this, but I always reference Kevin Hart. And I say that because Kevin Hart, whether you think he's funny or not, you cannot ignore him because he's everywhere.
Yeah.
He's everywhere. And what Kevin's philosophy is this: if you're looking for funny, I'm not going to make it hard for you to find it. He's got books, audio books, podcasts, streaming shows, streaming movies, documentaries, feature films, social media. He's everywhere. Commercials, and he's done that strategically. And all I'm saying to people, if you got a business, why aren't you doing that? Be where, like you said, be where they can find you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a great point, and everybody's got so many distractions. And I remember, like, I would talk to somebody, and I just assumed they knew I had a podcast. And they would go, oh, you got a podcast, really? And so they just taught me, you can't assume anything.
You can't.
You have to, like I think, my theory on this whole thing is, if you don't have somebody that's in your circle that's saying, man, you sure do promote your podcast a lot, you aren't promoting it enough.
Right. And think about this. How many times have we heard someone say, Kevin Hart doing too much?
Right. Exactly.
Right. And I said, that's what he did. They say he's doing too much. I say, good. I said that because that's what he wants you to say.
That's what it takes.
That's what it takes. And you're right. It's funny. You reminded me of something I heard Charles Barkley say about basketball players coming out early, going into the NBA early. He said, if you can go around the country and say that person's name, and someone says, who? Stay in school.
That's like, a good way to look at it.
When LeBron was coming out of high school, everybody heard his name. Everybody heard his name. So if somebody says who, you better stay in school. You're not as known as you think you are, or as those people speaking in your ear tell you are. Same thing when it comes to any media. Right. And what I'm trying to get people to understand is that everybody consumes their media in a different format. Like some people listen to podcasts, some people read books, some people watch films, some people watch YouTube, some people watch Roku, whatever. You need to be where they are and stop trying to find these people. Just be where they are. Be there. so that they can't ignore you. And that's all I'm trying to get across to people is, and a lot of people is like, oh my God, I can't do that. Yeah, you can. You can do it. Because one of the things that I admire about what you do with your podcast is you do video as well. And you know, and you can talk on this too, because the people that listen audibly to your podcast are not usually the same people that watch the video. So yeah, to talk about how that's different for you, if it is.
Yeah, it is different. So the main reason we do videos because if you do a podcast, the challenge is really connecting with your listeners and your followers. Where if you do video, you get the opportunity to build the community, right?
Okay.
And you can, people come on and they comment and they, like we have guests and the guests have a big following and they'll tell their followers, all their followers are commenting. So it's just a unique opportunity to build a community, but it's two different things. Now, both has, like, one of the advantages to audio is that people will gladly listen for an hour, right? So yeah, I mean, definitely the chances of someone, people, it may not be the same, depends on the content. I mean, it's harder to get people to watch a video for an hour.
Yeah.
Where it's easier for people to listen to what you're saying for that period of time. But no, I would definitely recommend doing both and just being everywhere.
And I like what you said there about the people listening for longer than they would watch. And usually it's because when you're watching, you usually have to click something to go to the next podcast. When you're doing Audible, when that podcast ends, it'll automatically go to the next episode. Sure. And that's cool. So you don't have to do it. Like when people are working out, they don't want to have to stop and click something and do. They just want to keep it going when they're working out. Same with driving or whatever, how they're listening to your podcast. So let me ask you, I got to mess with you a little bit. So did you throw a party when you hit them 6 figures on the downloads?
Not an official party, but we definitely celebrated, and because it's just anything, it's more of a grind than you think.
Oh yeah,
right? You go into podcast and thinking it's easy. It's
yes, you do.
You just start talking. You can just talk about anything, but you have to be so strategic, right? Yeah, you really have to give thought to how you're presenting it, like your niche, your target audience, your flow. I mean, you really have to plan that out, and it takes a while to really get that traction. So yeah, it definitely. I was pumped up, and I can't wait to 400,000, which should be in another couple of weeks or so.
And that brings up another question. Like when you're starting a podcast, you're just happy to get it going. You're happy to get it going. You're happy to get people who are downloading it. You're at a point now where you have to set serious goals now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you really have to be strategic. Where do we want to take this? And, how can we leverage this with other things? And the beauty of a podcast is that potential customers get to sample you, right, for free. So someone's thinking of hiring me to speak, right?
That's brilliant.
For free. It's almost like, how you go into the grocery store and you get the chicken on a stick. You get to sample it, right? You get to sample it. Right. Right. So I mean, that's the beauty of like having a podcast, is that potential buyers, they get to know you, they feel like they know you by the time you get to that point. So
that's true. That's a very good point. That's a very good point, because I never even thought about it like that, but that's true. They get to sample you for free to see if it's someone that they want to deal with. And yeah, that's interesting, because I never really thought about it like that. And so that being said, it's a great idea for business people to put themselves out there in that form, because it also can show a fun side of it. Because I mean, I'm going to tell you, if you're not having fun with your podcast, it's going to feel like work. And it shouldn't feel like work. It shouldn't feel like work. So here's the thing. I want to talk about your book, but what I want to do is I want to take a break first. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with more of Eric Twiggs on the Media Boss podcast. And we're going to find out how he controls his media with his book. So y'all stay right there. Stick and stay. We'll be right back. How are you going to learn everything you need to know about starting a podcast? Well, at the Create Your Podcast Weekend, we put it all in 2 days and help you get your podcast going by next week. That's right, by next week. All you have to do is come to the Create Your Podcast Weekend and let us show you how to get your podcast up and running. We will show you how to attract listeners. We will show you how to get people to pay you for your products and services. What products and services? The products and services we show you how to create, all at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. All you have to do is go to createyourpodcastweekend.com and get registered today. And we have special bonuses. Some of you will even get us to give you the equipment to start your podcast. That's right. We're going to give some of you the podcasting equipment to get started. Go to createyourpodcastweekend.com. That's createyourpodcastweekend.com and get started on your podcast by next week. Starting a podcast can be a daunting task. There's a lot that goes into it, and you're probably wondering if you're able to handle it. Well, why don't you just take 2 days and let us teach you how to do it at the Create Your Podcast Weekend. That's right. We're going to show you all the aspects of how to start your podcast, how to keep your podcast going, how to attract listeners, and how to make money with your podcast. CreateYourPodcastWeekend.com. Get registered right now. Welcome back to the Media Boss Podcast. I am Dr. Barrett Matthews. And as I told you, my guest is great. Yes, my guest is great again. And we have Mr. Eric Twiggs here. And he is here. He was talking about his podcast, 30-Minute Hour. But now, like I said, he controls his media. I want to talk about his award-winning, that's right, his award-winning book, The Discipline of Now 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. Ooh, that was a tongue twister, Eric. So, so can you talk to us about the inception of your book and how it's grown and how it's helped you?
Oh yeah, it definitely helps having a book. I mean, before I had a book, especially before I had a podcast, I would be talking to people like, hey, I can speak for your organization. And like, okay, yeah, we'll think about that. We'll keep you in mind, Eric. That's nice to know.
Right.
Thanks for the heads up. After I got a book, and then I'd be at an event and someone say, oh, hey, do you speak to real estate people? So it definitely helps. And it gives you just another, it doesn't guarantee you anything. It's just like,
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. But you're right.
It doesn't guarantee you anything, but it helps.
It's a credibility piece.
Yes.
And it's, as I like to call it, it's a business card on steroids.
Yes.
Because of my first book, I've got 3 now, but because of my first book, I've been asked to teach several classes. I just got a call last week to teach regarding the book. I was asked this year to do a commencement speech for a business college.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. But it's just because of the book. It's all because of the book. So it's like the media can lead to so many different things, man. And that's why I tell people, why would you just do one? Just do one form of media? It doesn't make sense because, like I said, I can't. And I'll be honest with you, and yours may be different because your podcast has 300,000 people. But I don't know of anyone right now who is reading my book and listening to the podcast, doing both, and it's because they're 2 different audiences. And like I tell people, both audiences I've made money from. So it would be foolish of me to neglect one and just go for one when I can make money from all. It just makes sense. I mean, and I'm sure you've had them kind of intersect with one another on your end, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, because our audience is entrepreneurs. And again, it goes back to that idea of the chicken on the stick, right? I think I got that from Rory Vaden. You started talking about that, but yeah, so you get to sample me, you get to hear me, and then you're like, okay, yeah, man, I'll try his book. Yeah, I like his content, so I'll see what I'll invest in his book. So I think they do work. They do tend to work together, and I do talk about things in my book on the podcast.
Right.
with various guests when we start getting into productivity and overcoming procrastination and a lot of those things.
So Eric, before we wrap up, please tell everybody where they can find your podcast, man, and your book.
So the 30-minute hour, you can get it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those places that where you consume content. You can also go to, we have a site for the podcast at 30minutehour.net, where we've got all those different podcasting platforms. And then as far as the book, The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination, you can go to my website, ericmtwiggs.com, and it's in paperback, it's in audio and ebook format.
And do you have anything going on that they need to know about?
I do. So as I'm the president of the What Now movement, which you mentioned earlier, this coming Saturday, September the 3rd, we're doing something we call Coffee and Conversation.
Okay.
With myself and Ted Fells and several of my other business partners, we get together, we do like an inspirational hour where we talk about a topic. So this Saturday, we're talking about slowing down to speed up. You'll like that, Barrett. It's right in your lane. We're talking about productivity. Sometimes you have to slow down so you can speed up. And that's you can actually check us out on the What Now Movement Facebook group. You go to What Now Movement.
I'm a member.
Right. So we'll be broadcasting live in that What Now Movement Facebook group. Request to join this coming Saturday, September 3rd, 10 a.m. Eastern time.
And even Howard grads are welcome. So, that's
right.
So, Eric, look, when you go over 1 million, which will probably be in a couple months, please call me back and we'll have you back on, brother. I thank you so much for joining me, man, and we'll be talking real soon.
Hey, thank you, man. This has been a blast. All
right, guys. That was Eric Twiggs, my man. And please make sure you're subscribing. Make sure you're following his podcast. Make sure you get his book. I'm telling you, it's dynamite. Please make sure you do all of that. And I have something for you guys. I'm giving you guys my complimentary gift right now. 5 ways to paying clients. I want to show you guys how to get paying clients. Too many people out there working and you're just working and working and working. You're not getting clients to pay you. What I want to do is give you a complimentary training. 5 ways to payingclients.com. 5 ways to payingclients.com. Go ahead and take that training. Now, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, I want to go over some more things I have for you before we get out. Y'all know how we end this show. So we'll be right back with more of the Media Boss Podcast right after this. Why should you contact Media Boss Club right now? Well, because you can get a podcast done for you. You can learn all the aspects that go into putting together a great podcast and have someone else do it for you. That's right. We will build your podcast around your content and make it so you can concentrate on the money-making activities of your business. Contact MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com today and let us get your podcast started right now. Let's face it, you've been talking about starting a podcast for quite some time, but you haven't started yet. Why is that? Could it be that you just don't have the time because your day-to-day keeps you so busy? Or could it be that you don't want to learn all the technical aspects that go into putting together a quality podcast? Well, at Media Boss Club, we take care of that for you. How would you like to have a done-for-you experience? That's right. At Media Boss Club, we build your podcast for you. We will edit your podcast. We will put in the music for you. We even put in commercial breaks that you can put your advertisers in. We will take care of all of the uploading to the great podcast platforms that are out there. That's right, we do everything. All you have to do is just right now go to MediaBossClub.com. That's MediaBossClub.com and let us handle the heavy lifting for you. Media Boss Podcast. I told you my guest, Eric Twiggs, was the bomb and he tore it up today. I hope you guys are subscribing to his podcast. Give him a nice review and also make sure you get his book as well. And on our end, I hope you guys are checking us out on Patreon. The Media Boss Podcast on Patreon, Media Boss Podcast on Patreon. Do that now. And remember, I just gave you a free gift. So go on and check out 5ways2payingclients.com, 5ways2payingclients.com. And if you guys are really serious about becoming a media boss and controlling your own media, I want to share with you how you can do that with all the media. I do a 5-day challenge called the Make Money from Media Challenge. Make Money from Media Challenge. I'm urging you guys, get your tickets now for this event. MakeMoneyFromMediaChallenge.com. If you do that, MakeMoneyFromMediaChallenge.com, sign up as a VIP. Now you're saying, but why should I sign up as a VIP? Because VIPs are very important people, and you get some very important perks just for being a VIP. Some of them are listed there. Some of them I didn't list because the VIPs know that they get it. If you feel that you're someone who should be at the top of the class, you'll be there. I know you will. Also, guys, if you would like to have your own podcast or even have one done for you, what I want you to do is text the word podcast to 929-244-4323. 929-244-4323. Text the word podcast right now, and we will set up a time where we can talk to you about having your own podcast and even a done for you podcast. And lastly, guys, make sure you are subscribing to the Media Boss Podcast and give us a nice rating and a fantastic review. We'd love to hear from you guys and hear how you like the show as well. And lastly, guys, it's time for us to get out of here. So you know how we do it. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Media Boss out.